So this is my print NC CNC machine. And it does the usual thing, moves back and forth, moves up and down, moves in and out, and it has an A-axis that moves around. The problem with machines like this is when you have a regular straight bit, they have trouble following the curve and making a very nice cut. For a long time, I put up with this, and you can get away with using something like a round nose bit or a ball bit like this one, because there's enough curve in the bit, it'll follow it. Gerbil Glue, unlike a lot of programs, will allow the bit to follow the curve after you've made a digital STL file with the probe function. But you're still left with the problem of the bit. It would be nicer for a square bit like this, or especially for a V bit, if you could have it cut straight into the wood every time and follow the curve over. And this just isn't possible with a lot of programs. But Gerbil Glue has worked hard and modified his program so that now there's a fifth axis that will do just this. So this is my fifth axis prototype that I've used for quite some time now. And it does allow for movement, as I just described, back and forth. And you'll notice that the tip of this tool, the very tip, doesn't move. And that's because I have the tip set right at the rotary axis center, which is the dot on the top of that bolt in the background, back here. When I change tools, I have a simple bar that comes out that helps me measure the tool tip. Right now it's riding on top of the work, but if I raise that a little bit, you can see that the bar comes out and the tool tip just touches it. So I get just the length of tool that I need to work with the fifth axis function. It's a little unusual that I have a lead screw driving this, but I did that for a couple of reasons. One, it's really cheap and easy to implement, and two, a screw is just not going to allow a bunch of movement once it's fixed in place, and there's no forces twisting that screw. So as an adjustment mechanism, it's simple and it does what I want. Unfortunately, there's still some play within this axis. So I've got a redesign that makes it a lot stiffer. But using that fifth axis and the software that Gerbil Glue can generate for it by overlaying ordinary DXF or SVG files onto the surface of your turned work, allows you to do things like that. So that's an image that's been V-carved into the surface of this test piece. And as far as I know, there is no other software, especially free, like Gerbil Glue, that can do this. So this brief description shows why I built my fifth axis the way I did, and the innovation that Gerbil put in his software to allow the tip of the cutting tool to stay perpendicular or normal to the work. So in this package, I can create a digital STL file from a wood turn piece I've made on my wood lathe. I can apply any DXF or SVG file that's suitable for this kind of work, and Gerbil will generate the code to cut it with 5 axes. Now normally the y-axis is not involved when you've got a axis. You want it to stay stationary over the y. So this is X, Z, A, and B. So this fifth axis is suitable for the work that I do. It's not really suitable for metal or precision machining. And this is not a how-to build a fifth axis video. But I will show you behind the cutter what I did, which is to make a simple frame and then have the lead screw attached to its lead screw nut in such a way that it can pivot. So normally I would just run this through 90 degrees plus or minus. The pivot point is at the bottom, and a couple of bearings front and back control movement that way. But as I said, there is some movement in this axis that I'm not happy with. So I've designed a new mount for this with a sturdy thrust bearing, and I'll be putting it right about here and taking this axis right off. Gerbil has the ability to move the pivot axis up or down from its current arbitrary position at 0. This one is set at negative 195 millimeters from that. And my new one will be set about 30 millimeters from that. So that's my custom fifth axis and the kind of work I can do with it. That's only possible through using Gerbil. I hope you enjoyed this presentation.